All right. So
Okay,
let's do a thing.
let's do the thing.
The theater company Improv Everywhere is mostly known for their MP3 projects, which were at their peak, I think, in like the 2000s, maybe early 2010s. And they used flash mobs to create public scenes. Anyone who wanted to participate in the MP3 projects could. Basically, you download an MP3, and at a specific time and place in New York City, you'd show up, and everyone would press play on their MP3 players while wearing headphones, like 3, 2, 1, play. And they'd sync this up, and with several different MP3s released to the public, people would listen to the track and then do exactly what it instructed them to do. What you ended up with was not just a flash mob, but a giant crowd of people performing a choreographed movement in, say, Central Park, like in complete silence. It's pretty cool. But Improv Everywhere did a lot of other interesting performance art stunts. Probably my favorite was sending this older man to the Union Square Barnes and Noble, where he set up a table and some signage proclaiming that he was Russian playwright Anton Chekhov. And he gave a speech at their like little stage area and signed books. And this enormous line formed, people hoping to get a book signed by a famous author they'd vaguely heard of, though not intimately enough to know that Anton would have been like, I think, 190 years old at the time if it were really him. So in 2004, Improv Everywhere did an event called Best Gig Ever, where they chose an unknown band performing at a small venue in New York City. And they got hundreds of their followers to show up on a Sunday night at 10 p.m. at the Mercury Lounge for this Burlington, Vermont based band called Ghosts of Pasha. This was a band on their first ever tour and had never really had a large crowd before or a big following yet. But on this seemingly magical night, there were hundreds of screaming fans in the club, and they had, as advertised, their best gig ever. What a rush that must have been for the Ghosts of Pasha. Or was it? Because it didn't take long for the band to learn that the whole thing was manufactured by Improv Everywhere. Despite Improv Everywhere's good intentions to give an upstart rock group a taste of huge success, Ghosts of Pasha couldn't help but to feel used and made fun of. It didn't matter the intention, the whole thing was artifice. On this rewatch of Brian De Palma's Carrie, I couldn't help but to think of Improv Everywhere's failed and ultimately harmful, if well meaning, prank. When Tommy Ross takes Carrie White to the prom, you don't trust him, not at all. But as the scenes progress, you do see sympathy and understanding growing in his eyes. It doesn't matter that in 2004, everyone at the Mercury Lounge, including the Ghosts of Pasha, had a brilliant time. In the end, it was just like Mama said, they're all going to laugh at you. Hi, Cecil.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Describe what you wore to prom.
Oh, what did I wear to prom? I went black tuxedo, vest. It was pretty simple. No tie. I just did like a little, sort of button kind of thing, kind of a, not priest collar, Nehru collar, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Really simple. But for me, the most exciting part was the fact that I flat ironed my hair because I
Mm.
actually had hair at that time. I mean, like enough hair on my head that I could do that. And I'd always wanted sort of like spiky, cool, late 90s surfer bro hair. So I did
Mm-hmm.
it for one night only. For one night only, I was the king of the prom.
Were you flock of seagulls looking with your hair like that,
No,
or
it was
no?
it was more like skater, like
Oh,
more
yeah.
more in sync than
Yes.
flock of seagulls.
Yes. Were you prom king?
No, dear God,
Oh,
no.
okay.
No, I think I took acid at that prom.
I was gonna say you didn't strike me as prom king type, and I mean that in the best possible way.
It was also a group of I want to say like six of my friends. We kind of went together, and it included some couple swapping because a few of them had graduated already and were at the local university, but we still wanted our friends to come. So we were like, none of us, you were dating that person, but I'm going to take them, because that whole like you have to have a couple of the opposite date, a couple of the
Oh,
opposite sex as your date. So we were like, yeah, we're a couple. What? All six of us are a couple.
that's so interesting. Like I didn't. That's a thing that comes up in this movie of like you have to have a date to the prom, and it has to
Yeah, you can't go
obviously.
solo to the
Yeah,
prom.
I didn't go to the prom, so this is something I had just never considered. Um, Yeah, that's so interesting. And obviously, like for you, 1990s, and for Carrie, 1970s, like they're very like, it's got to be a girl if you're a guy, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I think we literally we showed up, we took our fabulous prom photos. It was at a very beautiful theater. And then we dropped acid and then we left.
Do you remember where you went on acid? Or just
Probably
like
somebody's
somebody's house?
backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if you went through to like I have friends that did something similar, and then they ended up wandering onto a golf course and like
Ooh,
at
that sounds
11:30 at
exciting.
night and getting really freaked out by the woods.
Oh
That's where
yeah,
they
I
thought
bet.
they were. Yeah.
So dark and scary.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely made sure to drop acid after we went to the Melting Pot, the traditional pre-prom
Fondue
restaurant of
restaurant.
choice in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Is it a fondue restaurant?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, that's what I
I'm sure that
thought.
would have been terrifying on acid.
Oh my
You want me
God.
to put what into where and put that into my mouth? Oh no.
It's so sharp. So we got to Carrie. This was one of our cases where, we have a lot of films that really fit the brief really well, but very rarely do we get the grand slam home run of
Yeah.
matches, because we rolled Bad Mom,
Yep.
1970s.
I mean,
And there's little else that comes close to this.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, on our letterbox, a lot of our listeners brought in some really great movie recommendations, but really this is like, if you've got like your star hitter on the bench,
Yeah.
now's the
Yeah.
time to pull them out.
That's right. That's right.
I didn't realize that like both Piper Laurie and Sissy Spacek were nominated for Oscars for this film.
That's really interesting. For some reason, I had in my head that Sissy Spacek was. It makes sense that Piper Laurie would have been as well.
Oh yeah,
she's incredible in this movie.
yeah.
I watched this movie, I think last year around. I was trying to watch spooky movies at Halloween last year, and so it was nice to revisit it. It's a very Brian De Palma film.
Oh yes,
it's a very Stephen King story.
Yes, I mean it's his first. This is his first novel,
and it is it fits the bill of Brian De Palma has like such a strong male gaze. He's one of the horniest directors we've had in the mainstream, and Stephen King believes that every person under the age of 25 is the meanest person in the whole world.
Yes, and everyone over the age of 25 just doesn't understand.
Yes. And if you have ever just gone to church,
you are an insane religious nut.
Yep. That's Stephen King in a nutshell. So we start this film, Carrie, 1976, girls volleyball class.
Yep.
And it's this overhead shot of girls in high school PE playing volleyball, and it's obviously like they're keeping score. And it comes down to the last volley is hit toward Carrie White, our protagonist, Sissy Spacek, and she kind of like just flails, dodges, and all the girls are like, "You suck, Carrie White. We hate you.
Eat shit, Carrie White."
You ever played volleyball?
Yeah, I was actually pretty good at volleyball.
I'm gonna suggest I wasn't great at volleyball. I just played it in gym class, but I know it enough to understand how sports work.
Okay.
These girls aren't very good.
No, they're not.
It takes some gall to call Carrie White bad at volleyball from
There's
these
also like
kids.
7 of them on each side of the net. So literally that ball should not touch the ground ever because there's a body in its way.
So now we go shower off. And
this opening credit scene. You know what I love about this? It's so manipulative, this movie. And I think I told you right before we started recording that this is the kind of movie that as soon as it's over, I literally go again, and want to watch it again, because it really is like going on a tightly curated roller coaster ride, like next level Walt Disney fucked up prom roller coaster ride, because it swaps back and forth between these like slow motion, gauzy, steamy, luscious 70s pinks and yellows, slow motion into terrifying action.
Yes.
So it like lulls you into this sense of like, look at this beauty, the beautiful feminine female body in all of its glory. Oh, by the way, it's also terrifying.
And they're also just the worst people in the whole world. Yeah,
Oh my
this
God.
movie does this constantly with camera work,
Yeah.
with score,
Yeah.
and with these shots wherein it wants to juxtapose the beautiful, like, there's something very like old cinema about this,
Yeah.
like 50s, early 60s, sort of like suburban Americana. That's there's kind of like a sweet leave it to beavery beauty to the music. It's chipper, it's fun, and then every now and then there's these like violin shrieks, very
Right.
horror
Straight out of
score stuff.
Psycho, like
Yeah.
literally straight out of Psycho.
But this, okay, so the note I wrote in this opening scene before we get to it, essentially what's going to happen is Carrie goes into the shower. She has her first period and doesn't understand what's happening and panics, and then all the girls attack her. But before that, like you said, this slow motion pan through this naked high school girls' locker room, and then a slow motion of Carrie White just soaping up her tits in the shower. Yep. And I just wrote, "Are you there, God? It's me, Brian De Palma's male gaze."
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. Even when she reaches for the soap, there's one of those little nozzles coming out of the wall that is 100% just a metal dick hanging out. Just everything about this is so Skinamax. It's so funny. But this is such an interesting scene because it's lulling you into the sense of this very 70s thing of like leering cameras on gauzy women. In this case high school girls, but it lingers down to her legs where she's washing her legs and suddenly blood comes out with the water, which is setting you up for the ending as well. Not a lot of gore in this movie. Lots of blood.
It's the blood. I mean, like, what a loaded image of the menstrual blood, obviously the pig's blood that gets dropped on her, but this idea of the blood of Jesus, the blood of the lamb, the sort of religious connotations of blood, and sort of Margaret White's, the mom's insane crypto-fascist religious readings of the Bible. Yeah. Which aren't even from the Bible. Like half the shit she says is like not even in the Bible. It's just like wackadoo, like we're all evil kind of shit.
So these kids start, she rushes out of the shower and starts grabbing at them. She's still got blood on her hands.
Oh my God. And she goes straight to the white sweater. Just straight to the white sweater.
It is she doesn't handle it well. No. Carrie does not. No. She does not handle her panic well, and she rushes at the other girls, and they push her back into the shower and then start throwing. There's pads and tampons in like dispensing machines on the wall, and they crack those open and just start chucking them at her and
shouting, "Plug it up!"
My God, kids, when did?
We're not these days.
We're not still.
And by these days, I mean 1976 or whatever.
Yeah, literally. Okay, boomers. So then Miss Collins shows up. Miss Collins is our PE teacher,
starring Broadway star Betty Buckley.
Oh, that's right. That's Betty Buckley.
That's Betty Buckley. Yeah, who is later, I think, like Cats, Sunset Boulevard, like very like Broadway diva. And then later would have like an even, sort of Renaissance film career in horror movies because of, I think she's in M. Night Shyamalan film, as sort of like crazy old grandma lady in The Vanishing or one of those movies that he did. And she's great. And what's so funny is that she's Betty Buckley. She has to slap Carrie in order to like get her out of this like trauma response that she's having to getting her first period, because Carrie has no concept of what's happening to her. She thinks she's been injured. Yeah. She's trying to treat this poor girl, and she realizes you're having your period, and she gets these other girls away. Yeah.
Accosts all of them, being like, what
Mhm.
the fuck is your problem? Get them, like, literally is like grabbing their collars and
Yeah.
pushing them back.
Yeah.
Also, Elaine, what is it? Betty Buckley
Mhm.
is American Elaine Page,
Yes,
if
that's
you're
it.
looking for the comp.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep. Yep.
you could also say she's friendly Patty LuPone.
Yes. Or Glenn Close.
Yes, she
Like very,
is. Mhm.
very of that sort of like star of stage and screen.
Yes.
Like, here's a woman that's like, you don't want to fuck with. Do not fuck with this lady. But she's probably actually a really good time.
Yeah. Okay, so we go to Principal Morty's office.
Oh, dear God.
This is so, I didn't catch this the first time. So Miss Collins has brought Carrie to the principal's office. And obviously, like, the main thing throughout this is he keeps calling her Cassie instead of
Yeah.
Carrie.
Yeah.
I also had previously clocked the way he like looks uncomfortably at the blood stain still on Mrs. Collins' shorts, and he knows
Again, on the
that's,
white shorts. Goes right to the white shorts.
and it's very clear that he's not afraid of blood. He's afraid of menstrual blood.
Like,
It's
can't even
because,
say the word.
no. But one of the first things you hear in the overlap, like, it's just kind of a throw in, that as the camera is moving in on this scene, you hear him say to Miss Collins, well, we can't interfere with other people's beliefs.
Yes.
Which is obviously a nod to whatever Margaret White believes for her child. We can't be giving her tampons and pads if she doesn't believe in menstruation.
Right. Which, there's, I mean, welcome to Christian America.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, she gets Carrie gets so mad, she frustrated that she flips his ashtray over with her mind.
No, I love
Yeah.
the development of Carrie's powers throughout this film. I think it's such an interesting thing in that her powers, she actually blows out a light bulb in the shower scene, and then she kind of flips over this ashtray, but it's she's not doing it consciously. It's happening to her. It's not nuanced or subtle, or it's not controlled. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like you can see the ashtray sort of like jiggling, and then it sort of flips when she's like, my name is Carrie, not Cassie.
Yeah. And I think she's starting to realize that, because we go from light shatters just incidentally seeming in the shower to she's really eyeing this ashtray during this Carrie Cassie scene. And then on her way home, Bike Kid is like weaving in and out of trees going, creepy Carrie, creepy Carrie. And she fucking flips his ass.
Yeah. I mean, if you had telekinetic powers and people bullied you, I mean, this is the thing of like, I feel like we're witnessing like the birth of a Magneto.
Yeah,
here,
totally.
in that it's like, okay, you have superhuman powers and the society has treated you like dirt. Wouldn't you use them?
Yeah. Yeah. There's I think that's a through line in a lot of horror movies, especially young people horror movies, is the revenge thread.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mrs. White gets called by the school to say Carrie's being sent home because she had a rough day and this happened to her, and she fucking hits Carrie.
Yep.
And tells
There's a
her
lot of slapping in this movie, by the way.
So much slapping.
Like, people just like, I don't know what the 70s were on about, but everybody has a cigarette in their mouth and they're slapping the fuck out of each other.
The good old days. She
would you be like, don't call me a piece of shit, slap, slap, slap. You're like, damn, okay, who are you, like Bogey? Like James Cagney over here?
So, and she also Margaret starts preaching at Carrie, like, the first sin was intercourse. Eve was weak. Say it. Eve was weak. I'm like, oh God.
It's so funny, like, reading up on the trivia of this movie, like, Piper Laurie, came in with this, crazy religious energy, but she's like, you really want me to go bigger? And Brian De Palma's like, go bigger. And she's like, this is dumb. What I'm doing is it's funny. Like, Piper Laurie thought it was funny, and Brian De Palma sort of took her aside. It's like, really, I know it's how it's written. It's this unknown guy, Stephen King. It's his first book. It's his, this whole thing. It's really a dark comedy. So in order to get like Piper Laurie to like like her performance is so over the top
Uh-huh.
in order to like sort of earn the ending that we get, but like in her mind she's playing in a comedy, which is terrifying.
And Brian De Palma saw it as a dark comedy in the process, or was that something he just
I
fed
think that's
to?
just what he said to Piper Laurie in
Okay.
order to get her to that elevated, like, we need a villain, we need a capital V villain.
Mm-hmm.
And Piper Laurie's like, nobody, this is like verging into caricature. But because of the sort of heightened situation that we're in by the end of it, we need it to be ratcheted up to caricature like Bible beating Jesus freak.
Wow. Well, she did it. Congratulations, Miss
She
Laurie.
done did the job.
She grabs Carrie and locks her in the cupboard, the pantry. She's got the punishment closet off the
Yep.
kitchen.
Yep.
And Carrie, this is the freakiest looking little Jesus statue next to the candle here. It looks like Weird Al Yankovic. Like it's with glowing eyes. Yeah.
It's almost not even Jesus. It's actually like a Saint Sebastian, because it's got like the arrows into its body.
Okay.
Which would then like echo what happens to Mom in the movie, the sort of like death by 10 arrows kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, which is kind of interesting, if it is a Jesus, it's a very brown-skinned Jesus.
Yeah.
So actually, historically, probably more accurate than your sort of Presbyterian Jesus.
Totally. So later at night, she gets out of the closet and is, basically been tamed. She's been broken by Mom. Mom says you can go to bed now. She kisses her mom, goes and cries in the mirror in her bedroom and shatters the mirror.
And Mom hears it. She's like, and Mom, of course, is, like, I love the sort of shift from, you see glimmers of tenderness in Margaret White, but they often disappear into insanity. But she's like, are you okay, Carrie? I heard something. And Carrie at this point is like, I didn't hear anything. What you talking about? I'm praying right now, Mom. I'll go to bed when I'm done. You're like, oh, Carrie.
Yeah, I like the progression of her understanding of her power is really what's happening here, right?
Yeah.
She's starting to get it from the incidental light burst in the shower to flipping the kid on the bike to shattering this mirror. And now she's like, oh, I can now withhold from my mom a little bit.
Yeah. And she's not, and I love this choice that she's not afraid of herself. She's not afraid of her powers, because she does quickly realize that she's causing it. I mean, and I also listen, I love any character that's like, something crazy is going on, straight to the library.
Yeah. So we're in class. This is where we meet Tommy Ross, who,
all that hair.
This happened to me again watching this movie last night, as it did a year ago when I watched it for the first time, which is I couldn't stop humming, look what's happening to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly I'm up on top of the world. Did you ever watch The Great American Hero in the 80s?
Oh, no, I don't think I did.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I
know that
thought
song.
I could be so free. That was the theme song to this dumb fucking show about a guy who gets a superhero outfit from a alien spaceship, and then but he doesn't have any inherent superpowers on his own. And the joke of the show all the time was he's a superhero who has strength and can fly and run fast, but like not super strong, not super well, can't fly that good. So nice. It was and it was played by Tommy Ross.
Okay.
And so he just is, it's an iconic look, because I watched that show a lot as a kid because I love the theme song and the goofy premise. But yeah, that kind of like golden curly haired boy.
I just get, it's a mix of not Pete Townsend, who's the lead singer of The Who.
Roger Daltrey.
It's Roger Daltrey meets the cast of Godspell.
Yeah.
Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus will save you.
Well, the teacher is reading this poem aloud that Tommy Ross
this poem.
wrote.
Did he? Did he
mhm.
write it? I love that little reveal later on. He's like, I didn't even write it, and you can infer that it was actually Sue that wrote it for him.
Yes.
But he's the captain of the football team. Oh my gosh, could one person be so handsome and be captain of the football team and also be so sensitive and literate, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Can it be possible?
Yeah. Yeah, can it's impossible. He's laughing through this whole scene, and it reads to me in the moment as just a very proud male person who's too afraid to be vulnerable by sharing their original writing. Like, that's a vulnerable thing to say, yes, teacher, you can read my poem to the class. So he spends the whole time kind of like laughing and making fun of his own poem throughout. And the
That's
teacher,
interesting. I thought it was much more of a like smug, like, yeah, I knocked this one out of the park.
oh
Like, it's
yeah,
very much like, it's like the, when you like hit the home run and then you get to like hit all the bases,
yeah.
it's that like, yeah, I'm going to sort of jog it, yeah, hey, smiling, waving at the crowd. Look at that. I wrote that poem, sort of.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense too. I think I was just doing a deeper read into why he behaves that way, acts so smug because he's got to laugh it off. But Carrie says, God, the scene is so amazing, but it's so aggravating, right? The teacher says, does anybody have any critique? And Carrie speaks up and says, it's beautiful. And the teacher's like, well, sure, but that's not really a criticism, is it, Carrie White? Like,
Yeah.
good God.
I know, like the girl in class that never speaks says something nice about, like, actually speaks up in class, and then your immediate response is to like make fun of her in front of the entire class.
Yeah. Okay, so gym class. It's the day after the shower incident, and Miss Collins is like, y'all did a really shitty thing. If it were up to me, none of you would get to go to prom at all.
No, not do we go to that?
Ah.
She's like, yeah, that's if they'll really get you, wouldn't it?
So the punishment is 1 week's detention, but it'll be PE detention. You will be under me, and I will make you do bent knee push-ups.
They're like, we're doing CrossFit. Forced CrossFit.
So in this scene, we have what is her name? Edie McClurg. I love that Edie McClurg is one of the high school girls in this. She is from Ferris Bueller. She was the assistant principal, or the secretary.
Yeah. And also PJ Souls, who was who this is her first film, and she would she was seen in this and then cast in the scene in Halloween where like usually like they're making out with the boy and she gets up to go to the bathroom,
That's right.
and then comes back with the sheet over, and it's not her boyfriend anymore.
Yeah,
like again, man, the 70s were rough with their like mean pretty girls.
Yes. And PJ Souls plays Norma, who has the icon, like, every girl is wearing yellow shorts.
I know, I love it.
Like, she has red shorts and a red baseball hat. Even at prom, she is in a prom dress and a red baseball hat.
Listen, she has a signature look, okay?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you have to be thinking about your brand.
That's it.
Yeah. Always be ABC. Always be crafting your brand.
Always be crafting your ABCYB. That they make my favorite frozen yogurt, by the way.
So the leader or the lead mean girl here is Chris, played by Nancy Allen.
You can tell that Chris is the kind of person who has literally never had anyone say no to her ever.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have, she has found a way to circumvent that no.
Yeah.
And get whatever the fuck she wants.
She's pretty, she's blonde, she's popular, she's probably from a rich family. And that just nobody has said no to her at all. And Carrie makes her crazy because in her mind, Carrie is who got her in trouble.
Yeah. There's an interesting line. It's really brief, but like back when Miss Collins is talking to the principal, she admits, she's like, there was a moment where like all these girls are so mad and making fun of Carrie, and she's like, I was mad at her too, because I'm like, how could you not? There's that feeling of come on, get it together, girl. Like, you're
Mhm.
16 years old. You should know the facts about the birds and the bees. And that frustrated, you know, the gym teacher. She's
Mhm.
like, you should oh God, you're so, come on, just get it together. But clearly Miss Collins sort of curbs that and shows some like a bit of understanding.
Yeah. I think Miss Collins is a great character in this movie. She's
Yeah.
so fascinating because she does get it. She really wants Carrie to succeed, and she spends especially the first like third of this movie trying to better understand Carrie.
Yeah.
And it's not just about protecting essentially like somebody with like a nearly debilitating mental illness, which is not
Yeah.
quite, but somebody who has suffered so much trauma from their upbringing
Yeah. Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
cannot function socially
Yeah.
normal, like ever. They cannot function in like common society, and for her to like, we really see Betty Buckley take this character to that level of like, I really hope you do okay, poor thing. To
Yeah.
I'm really understanding you.
Yeah.
I
I
want
mean,
good things for you, and I get why this is like this, and I want to help, which are two different things. Like pity and helpfulness are two
yeah.
different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. Empathy versus sympathy, maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, she even shares, like at prom, she even talks about, she opens up about her prom experience and kind of really becomes an alternate mother figure for Carrie in this
Mhm.
film. Still doesn't work though.
No, which is part of what makes this movie so bleak, right? Is this
Yeah.
that like because it's bleak when so many people die in a horror movie, but also a lot of times so many people die, and you're kind of like, well, also fuck those fictional assholes.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a movie where the best person in the movie doesn't make it out, you
Yep.
know.
Which, honestly, I was watching this with my boyfriend and he was like, good for you, Carrie. Kill them all. Good, bad, doesn't matter to Carrie. She's
Nope.
like, again, back to that Magneto thing of just like, you're all implicit.
Mhm. Okay,
But I find
so
but I find
oh,
that really interesting that, the gym teacher is like that frustration with Carrie of like, you should, come on, man, do better. But Chris's reaction is such of like you are the weakest link. You must be like, you exist purely to become a receptacle for the 2 minutes of teenage hate
mhm.
every week at gym class.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we'll talk about our two couples that are going to set everything in motion. One is Sue and Tommy. They
Mm-hmm.
are a couple. So Tommy Ross is dating Sue Snell. They're both very attractive, curly-haired people. They both are part of the mean kid group, but both of them seem like they could be salvaged as nice people. They could be. Like if they ever just learned about empathy and how valuable that can be, not just for others, but for yourself.
Sure.
And then you have the other couple of Billy and Chris who are just absolutely trash human beings.
Yeah.
And I love them. So um Billy is played by John Travolta.
Yep.
So
His
again, this
first
is
film
his
role.
first movie, right?
Yeah, apparently he like was literally like auditioning for this film like on lunch breaks of Welcome Back, Kotter.
Wow.
And I mean, like, John Travolta is a great actor, or at least, there was a time when he was a truly great actor. And this is, I mean, it's shocking how handsome he is.
Yes.
Like, that smile is ridiculously
Yeah.
attractive, which, the fact that he's playing a beautiful asshole is perfect. Perfect
Even
casting.
better. Even better. Well, their relationship is so funny because she calls him a stupid shit for like tapping the brakes too hard, and
He slaps her
he smacks
because
her for
apparently,
that.
because it's the 70s, so everybody slaps the fuck out of each other.
Yep. And don't call me a stupid shit. And then she turns real flirty, and then she pushes him away, and then he smacks her for calling her a stupid shit again, and then ultimately she goes down on him because she wants him to help her get revenge on Carrie White. And I love this scene because it's from the passenger side seat, John Travolta and Nancy Allen, the back of her shoulders and head as she's going up and down on him. And the whole time you hear the audio of her going, I hate Carrie White. I'm like, how are you saying that?
I
How
know.
are you speaking so eloquently right now?
Again, it's that sort of like there's a lot of tricks with sound that Brian De Palma does that are really interesting, in which, you'll have a character talking on the phone and you'll only hear one side of the conversation, or the sound will drop out entirely and you'll just hear like one sound. And with like a very loud, what normally would be a loud scene, you only hear like one aspect of the sound. So it really adds this sort of very claustrophobic thing. But this is another case in which it's sacrifices realism for almost internal monologue.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see her say, I hate Carrie White. She's literally giving a blowjob while she's saying that. So like, what you're watching on the screen, there's a cognitive dissonance between what's being said and what you're seeing. So it's almost like penetrating. It's almost like when a character in a play does a soliloquy to the audience of just be like, I am Iago. I hate that asshole.
So the other couple is Sue and Tommy. The plan is Sue feels really bad for how they treated Carrie. And also, and she thinks, Carrie just needs to fit in. And so, Tommy, would you do anything for me? Sure. Will you take Carrie White to the prom? And he agrees.
Yeah.
I mean, to Tommy's credit, he's like, I just want to make my girlfriend happy.
Yeah.
But he he invites Carrie. He finds her at the library and she just kind of runs off scared.
She's like,
And
all my dreams are coming true. Oh no.
And Miss Collins finds Carrie and it's like, it might be okay. Maybe you'll have a great time. Like, you should have a better view of yourself. You should think you're good enough for Tommy Ross.
What is the movie? Is it Pollyanna, where in, the sort of like, girl with glasses looks into the mirror and sort of takes off her glasses and pulls her hair out of the bun and like, look, mama, I'm pretty. I'm pretty, mama. I think it's something like that. But there's this moment in this film in which the gym teacher literally takes Carrie aside. She's like, look, all you need to do is sit up straight. Maybe
curl your hair,
makeup, just curl your hair. And of course it's the 70s, so all the hair is like feathered as fuck.
like a majestic eagle. Yeah,
that's all you got to do is just Farrah Fawcett up and you'd be really pretty, Carrie. And that whole thing of like the beautiful girl is hiding underneath her chunky sweater the entire time. It's very She's All That.
Yeah. Miss Collins actually confronts Tommy and Sue about this,
which good. Like, I love the fact that there's that sort of like, okay, what the fuck are you all up to?
Yeah,
I'm not. And she even says, she's like, I'm not dumb. Carrie's not dumb. This smells fishy.
Yeah. The script does such a great job at showing the way in which people can change. And you can change through age, through experience, through learning. You can change through like forcing yourself to be better. But sometimes you change by people teaching you a way to change and why to change. And here's an example of Miss Collins being like, Tommy says, what's the big deal? And she says, it's a big deal for Carrie White, which is a great line to just say, because empathy, Tommy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you can't go from, I love your intro. I think it's like a spot on thing of like, you can't go from 0 to 90 and expect not to get whiplash.
No.
I went to like maybe like 0 to 45.
Yeah.
If if Sue and Tommy had talked to those other two yahoos that he was kind of hanging around with that are kind of silly and fun, or the the class president we see who's kind of nerdy, like if we don't have to go right up to like captain of the football team. Like, what if we went to like vice president of the school class?
Yeah,
like go from minors to majors. Like let's keep it in the same field, and this whole thing might have been averted had they not tried to fix the situation by going from 0 to 90.
Yeah. And I think deep down, like one of the most important things to us, socially speaking, and if not the most important thing, is being genuine.
Yeah.
And so like not just not lying about who you are or pretending to be something else, but also not forcing yourself into a place that you don't belong, right?
Sure.
So when you made the comment like we ditched prom and did LSD,
Yeah.
that doesn't phase me at all. Like I have no issues with drug use or anything like that. It's just not a thing. But like I feel like if one of my cousins in Idaho said that, I would be like, "What are you doing?"
What? Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit who they are. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't try to be something you're not. And in the same way, when Tommy is taking her to prom, you're right. It's accelerating it too fast. Like she doesn't know how to exist here. She can barely exist in gym class,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
alone as prom king and queen.
And it's even worse because Tommy is just like this lovable kind of dumb dummy who's like, I don't know. I just sort of do things and people love me. So
Yeah.
if you just do things, Carrie, people will love you too, just like me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he actually goes back over to Carrie's house because she didn't say yes yet. And he's just insistent. He's like, she's like, you better go. He's like, not till you say yes. And you can hear inside her house.
There are some crazy religious, like the blood of the Jesus will wash you clean kind
Uh-huh.
of recording or something like that.
And she says, fine, I'll go. You have to go. Goodbye. So Billy and Chris's plan is to go to Billy's family's pig farm.
Uh-huh.
Billy says the phrase, get her done in the scene, which cracked me up because I just thought, I guess it is a Southernism.
Yeah.
And that's why Larry the Cable Guy used it as his
Yeah.
catchphrase. I just sort of assumed he kind of like, I guess it has existed for a long
Yeah.
time. I don't know.
And I think this takes place in North Carolina, I read. It
Okay.
doesn't read Southern except for maybe, the slight Sissy SpaceX accent has a slight Southern twinge to it. But
Yeah.
it does have that I don't know what happens when rampant Christian crazy has to bleed out into the hallowed halls of institutional America.
Yeah. It's definitely not Maine. We did not
No,
take place to put this movie
it's
in
definitely
Maine.
not California. It's not so Southern
No.
California. Although a lot of the girls are giving me very like, Santa Barbara vibes.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, I don't like that Carrie Fisher very much.
No,
Not
I
at
don't.
all.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Eat shit, Carrie White.
Oh, Carrie Fisher. I say Carrie Fisher. Yeah, Carrie White. I don't like that Carrie Fisher, none either. Okay, so Billy gets in the pen, finds a pig, and just smashes it with a sledgehammer. I'm
But
like, I would tie that thing up first and then cut it open because you just lost a lot of blood there in that
also,
pig.
God, like those pigs are like 300 pounds. Like, okay, you're gonna drain that pig, then you gotta like dispose. Ugh, this plan sucks. It's also very labor intensive. I think that's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe my favorite just setting of this movie is Carrie and her mom over dinner when she tells mom,
God.
I got invited to prom, and lightning in the
Yes.
background.
Well, we got to talk about this house. I
Uh-huh.
love this set design. It's got very sort of Midwest farmhouse vibes. The first time you see it, you notice there's a for sale sign. I think it's on the house next to it, implying whoever lives next to the Whites are like, get me the fuck out of this neighborhood. So
Uh-huh.
already you understand there's like the pariah of the neighborhood. In an earlier scene, we see Margaret White call on Sue's mom
Mm-hmm.
and is very like, she is reluctantly like, oh, do you want to come in, Mrs. White? And Miss White comes, she's like, we got to talk about it's my favorite fucking line. And she's like, she's like, my daughter's a good girl. These are godless times. I'll drink to that. And then the mom sort of goes,
Yep.
oh, here's $10.
Yes. In the scene about prom at dinner, Margaret she like throws her tea in Carrie's face
Yeah.
and then it's like, no, 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 no. go to your closet and pray, ask to be forgiven. And
Is
she
this where we
tells
get? This is also where we get sort of the story of Carrie's dad. I think.
No,
I think this
we
is the
get the
scene.
tease, we get the payoff at the end.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
tease. So in this fight, Carrie uses her telekinetic power to slam all the windows and doors in the house.
Which?
And her mom looks at her and says, "You got Satan's power."
Yeah.
She says, "It's not Satan, it's me. I have the power to move things." Which is, again, a great line.
Yeah.
The power of God is not here, Mom.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, God isn't controlling this. You are.
Yeah.
You can make the choice to be good or bad.
Or Satan.
Or yeah, you
Like,
can.
I don't have the devil in me. It's just me.
Yeah. She tells her mom, I'm going to go to the prom. Things are going to change around here. And
I love that. I love that line of like, you like really the simplicity. I mean, Sissy Spacek is just like a fucking national treasure because she's so simple and so fresh is like the only word I can use. Like, and fresh, I mean, like in these scenes, each movement, each line reading is very unexpected and tender.
yeah,
It's not, she doesn't just play meek and mild because she's supposed to be meek and mild. She's trying to figure things out.
yeah,
And when she does kind of step into her own in these little moments before the last 30 minutes of this fucking film, you can see that with a different upbringing maybe, or even like if she had a few friends or a teacher kind of hit earlier on, how her life could have been different because she has the capacity to quote fit in.
yeah.
Had she not had like an abusive mother who's like, "Oh, you feel good? Well, we're gonna beat that right out of you."
Yeah. And then the key point about Dad here is that Margaret alludes to Satan taking away your father. And Carrie says, everybody knows Daddy ran away with another woman.
Ooh.
Which is, one, so sassy, but also it goes back to, it's not Satan, it's me.
Yeah.
It's not Satan, it was Daddy.
Yeah.
Daddy
it's not
made
Satan,
a choice.
It's you.
Yeah.
You drove him away.
Yeah.
Because you're a lot.
Yeah. Or you can make the choice to address that. But you're waiting on, you just see it all as either God gives you good things, Satan takes them away.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've rigged up a metal bucket of pig's blood into the high school gym rafters.
Yep.
And I love this line because Chris is being bossy with Billy as he's rigging this thing up. And he says, "Keep your tits on. I'll let you pull the rope when the time comes. Keep your tits on."
Love it.
And so now we've got like Norma's boyfriend is like working his way onto the prom committee. This whole scene where he's like, "Hey, Ernest, I know I didn't get back to you about being on the prom committee. Can I be on the prom committee? I know it's the day of."
Yeah. Can you show up at 6:30? No, I'll be there at 8. 8's good for me. Okay, buddy.
And also, can I count the ballots? And I'm like, Ernest, where's your sense of, you need a 2-step verification here. What's happening?
I know, right? You're like, are you a traffic light? Because I don't think you know what the traffic lights are in this CAPTCHA.
Yeah. There's no question that this Freddy guy was there on January 6th. Like, that is just totally like, democracy,
absolutely.
fuck it.
And I think there's like Norma in the background watching the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
just being like, yeah, we're going to do this.
Yeah. So we get this goofy scene where like Carrie is trying on lipstick. Meanwhile, Tommy is trying on a tuxedo and his dorky friend is like, "I don't have a tuxedo body." So he gets essentially a t-shirt.
It's a tuxedo tee.
Yeah.
Classic.
Another incredible line. It's just such a funny but perfect line. Carrie's all dressed up in her room getting ready for the prom. She has chosen, Mom walks in and says, "I might have known you'd wear red." She goes, "It's pink, Mama." And her dress is clearly the palest shade of pink.
Right. Yes.
Her lipstick is lighter than vermilion.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, everything is so soft about her.
Yeah.
And Mom is like, "I knew you'd wear red."
Isn't
So
that,
good.
I mean, it's so telling of like when, I mean, it's also a very Stephen King archetype of like religious fanaticism that only sees life from one angle, and when things do not conform to that, they like have all refusal to see what's actually right in front of them.
Yeah.
Like The Mist is one of my favorite Stephen King religious nuts, and I think that's Marcia Gay Harden who plays the like, they're like, oh, you see what's happening out there? That's Jesus. It's the end times. But that idea of like sort of retroactively fitting what's happening right in front of you into a preconceived notion, I'm not going to say we haven't gotten rid of that to this day, but it's but that's the thing of like you see pink, you call it red because you want it to be red.
Yeah. Margaret also has an incredible line here because she's looking down at, Brian De Palma is staring down at Carrie's breasts with the camera, and Margaret says, "I can see your dirty pillows."
Dirty. Oh my God.
I have a
Talk
new
about
pickup line, Cecil.
That's
I'm so
it.
excited to use that.
Adding that to your Tinder profile.
That's
Can
right.
I see your dirty pillows?
No, I just say I can see your dirty
I
pillows.
can see your dirty pillows. Swipe right.
And Mom, it's such an incredible moment. She is like staring at the window, like with all of the anxiety of what Carrie should have, which is my date here? When's he gonna be here? And it's Mom pacing back and forth, looking out, saying he's not coming. He's not gonna come at all. And then she starts scratching her face, her own
slapping
face,
herself, pulling her hair. Yikes. This is like some snake handling shit right here.
This is where we get the famous line, "He's gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you." And what does Carrie do? "Sit down, Mama." Zap. And Piper Laurie goes flat on the bed.
Fuck, man. So simple. Like, that's what I love about this movie is that, for a horror film, it's like it gives you very little because it's saving it for the big punch at the end. So these moments of telekinesis are very simple. She's, like, you don't see anything really. You just sort of see Piper Laurie get like laid down in bed, knocked down. But it's not, because it is so simple and because it's so sparse when these telekinesis moments show up in, the first 2/3 of the film, it seems much more realistic, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's not overblown. It's not Matilda. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like we're making teacups dance and, she's like balancing a pencil. It's like The Craft. She's just sitting there bored in class, just active, just being like, I don't know, I'm telekinetic, so why not? Like, when it comes out, it's very sparse. It's very selected. And it is tied to Carrie's emotional response to whatever's happening in the scene rather than a sense of like, I've got powers, I'm going to use them.
Yeah. So we make it to prom. Tommy shows up. He kind of gives her this like pep speech of like, don't be nervous. They're a good crowd, really, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Give people a chance. And listen, like there are like the other, the girl who's sort of like, God, this is really hard to watch. I mean, it's perfect because it's hard to watch. In that, like, one of the girlfriends is like, I love your dress. Where'd you buy that? Oh my gosh, you made it. And she's trying to like sort of keep Carrie engaged.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the camera is seeing everyone's reaction to just Carrie walking in. And it's that feeling of they are all laughing at her.
Yeah.
Or selected people are laughing at her, just being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she even showed up. But Carrie doesn't see it because she's sort of wrapped in this bubble of, teenage wistfulness because she's got friends. She's got a really handsome guy who's like actually listening to what she has to say. But there's trouble afoot.
There is so much trouble. Can't speak. There is so much trouble afoot, and it's it's so interesting, this notion of like nobody, like this very Stephen King thing of like everybody is mean, even the people who haven't, even the NPCs in the background.
Yeah.
The way that they're all sort of like anxious for this fucking nerd
Yeah.
to like get hers. Like, you don't deserve this.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really realistic feeling that we have, that going back to what you said about Miss Collins earlier, that Miss Collins was very annoyed with Carrie.
Yeah.
And that Carrie is like, how are you not caught up with us socially?
Sure.
But Miss Collins does a thing so few of us do in society, which is to take a moment and say, how can I accept that people are at a different place in their lives?
Yeah.
And everybody here has that animalistic instinct of like, oh, this fucking nerd's gonna get it, and they're excited.
Like attack the weakest of the group.
Totally.
To either destroy it, rub it out, or to teach it a lesson, to toughen it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, sort of the autistic read on this movie, like on Carrie, of like loud noises really shock and startle. She like withdraws, sort of this being on the spectrum, and like what it must be like to be, you know, like sort of neurodivergent, like, and have to like fit your, you know, octagonal peg into a square hole that is public education in America.
Yeah.
Be like, no, just put on some makeup, go to prom, everything will be fine.
Yeah. So Tommy's scenes are really sweet in this. Like, if you just isolated that, you'd be like, okay, this is the case of somebody trying to be really patient with another person, to be like, listen, just let's have a good time, let's relax. He's like,
if you want to sit, like, we can dance, we can not dance, we can sit here, we can, you know.
And he does finally take her out to the dance floor, and she's like, I don't know how. He's like, just relax, just take my hand here, take my hand here, and we'll do this. And it's really sweet. You know, the camera's below watching them spin and laugh.
This goes on for a minute.
It does. It's really like, it's high school romantic comedy, you know. It's kind of that feel. What do you make of the moment when he kisses her?
It strikes me as he is seeing what, like, authenticity, like he's seeing her off, you know, like when she's kind of sort of the you know, the programming that her mom is sort of, that her mom has given her, sort of washing away. She's finding her voice, and in that moment, because she has kind of like, she's discovering she can do more than she thought she could do. That's attractive.
Yeah.
That is attractive to people, watching people be their authentic selves. And, you know, being kind of a fumbly boy, he's like, that is attractive to him. And I don't think he understands just how loaded that kiss is to Carrie White. You know, like I keep thinking, like, okay, let's assume that the pig's blood never happens, right? Let's assume the prom goes off without a hitch. They get elected king and queen of the prom. They don't. It doesn't matter. What is this conversation going to be like the next day? In which they have this magical night. Carrie's now hopelessly in love with this boy, but he also has to explain to her that he's like practically, you know, engaged to this other girl who's also, you know, wants to be her, like, you know, like, this is going to be a really sticky situation emotionally. And again, even without the pig's blood and the terrible prank, there's going to be some heart-rending moments.
Yes.
In a much more dramatic way than horror suspense kind of way. More Degrassi High is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I had a similar read on it that, you know, there's I'd seen people online talking about this movie being like, Tommy totally cheats on his girlfriend. I'm like, I think by letter of the law he is, but I think it's just immature irresponsibility here. I think you're right. I think he has a moment where, like, listen, I feel this. I wouldn't kiss you unless I meant it. And I think you would benefit from being kissed by me too. By knowing that I actually feel good things for you. Right. It's his way of expressing that to her. Because clearly we also learn in this moment, he's not a writer of poetry. So he's got to show it in some other way.
Yeah. And now begins one of the longest, most amazing tracking shots in cinema history.
Are you talking about the when Sue discovers the rope up to the?
No, so it starts with was it Norma and you know, what's his name, Freddie, I think, collecting the ballots. This is one shot, and it goes all the way across the gym, and they're collecting, and it's like how to rig an election in one tracking shot.
Uh-huh.
Starts with them, they're collecting it, they're like, her in her hat collecting all the ballots, and then they sort of go to the corner and they start to kiss, and they drop the ballots. And he's like, just, they're right behind you, just start kicking.
Mm-hmm.
And she kicks them back underneath some of the prom decorations, and she seamlessly like pulls new ballots out of his coat.
Mm-hmm.
We still one shot, hands them over, more ballot. Oh yeah, 5 more ballots, great. Takes them over, hands them to the prom committee. The camera continues, and we see Chris and Billy in shadow underneath the stage. So
Yes.
we just keep going. We follow the line. Now, Sue has actually snuck into the prom because she wants to see her good works.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, it's not enough that, I send my boyfriend off to do a good deed by like showing Carrie a good time. I have to see it.
Yes.
I have to go, yes, I helped do that.
Yeah.
But it continues past her, follows the line up to the pig's blood. They announce King and Queen of the Prom, and then off in the distance, which is where we started this long ass tracking shot, is Carrie and Tommy at their table, and they're like, oh my god, we've won the teenage Oscars.
Yeah.
We're king. But it's like I've watched this, I think I watched it 3 times last night, where I just went back to the start to try, like, it's amazing. And I think I read in the like IMDb notes that like this, just the prom scene alone took like 2.5 weeks to film.
Wow.
Just the prom scene.
Just to get the rehearsals down, just to get the choreography of the whole scene correct.
Yeah, because it's camera movement, it's lighting, it's also like really complicated blocking with the actors, but it's fascinating to me just how tightly controlled that is to have that one shot. And then we're going to get into this weird split shot Carrie going bananas.
I was going to say right before that, because there's the slow-mo movement of Carrie and Tommy in this really big bright white flood on them, flood of light as they get up there and they're crowned king and queen. It's all slow motion, and also you can see people talking, but you never hear the voices. And
it's similar to the opening shot.
Yeah,
it's that sort of like flowery nostalgia music.
Yep.
Until it cuts down to, Chris down there, who's like literally licking her lips, like with anticipation of revenge.
Yes. And it's Sue is there, and she's not dressed in prom gear, and it's Miss Collins. It's okay. So Sue sees the rope, tracks it up to where the blood bucket is, looks under the stage, is actually about to confront Chris and Billy under there.
Yeah.
But Miss Collins sees Sue and be like, you're not supposed to be here. You don't have a date. You're a troublemaker.
Yeah.
And then marches her ass out of the gym.
And as soon as those doors close, all hell breaks.
Yeah. So she gets her ass kicked out, and then the pig's blood dumps on Carrie, record scratch. And Norma starts laughing. Everyone starts laughing, all except Tommy.
But are they?
Yeah.
But are they?
Yeah, that's a good. You can't hear them. It's all slow mo,
and it goes into like sort of like kaleidoscope vision. As like, this is what Carrie is seeing, and it's all these characters that are probably in reality not laughing at her.
Yeah,
that are all mortified, because the only person who's actually laughing is Norma.
Yeah,
because Norma's fucking crazy. She's like, a bit of a shit stirrer. But it's a lot of character, sort of the president of the class, the sort of nerds who in actuality were really nicer and probably are like mortified by this. But in Carrie's vision, they are laughing at her.
Yeah.
So it's this thing of like, it's heightened reality that doesn't match actual reality. So like, we're seeing things through Carrie's eyes, and that reality is schismed at this point.
Yeah. represented by the split screen showing
Yeah.
two different sides of her moving and looking at the crowd. And it
Yeah.
is, it's it's truly terrifying because
Yeah.
this is like, this is school shootery, right?
Yeah. I had
Um,
that same thought. Yeah, of like it's very much that.
yeah. Chris and Billy had made a run for it because nobody saw them. And
Yeah.
they sneak out and they're trying to watch. They think they're going to be laughing outside the building, peeking in through the windows. But what they see is Carrie slamming, locking all doors with her mind.
Yep.
The fire hoses come off the wall and douse the floor and everyone in water.
And like picking them off, like getting them away from the doors. People are
Yep.
just like fire hose. It's very like, I mean, in the 70s, this is coming off of like Vietnam War protests of like
Mhm.
police using fire hoses to control crowds.
Yep. And she detaches a backboard and it swings down and crushes Mrs. Collins against the
Yeah.
wall. And
The Mr. Fromm, the sort of weird English teacher, is like fighting with the principal or somebody over the microphone. They both get electrified.
and I think everyone gets electrified and then the whole building burns down.
Yeah.
And Carrie, and this is Chris and Billy watching from the window being like, what the living fuck?
I know, right? Right. Now it's so interesting. Like, God, this choice that like Sissy Spacek is made of glass in this moment. Like her hands are sort of like outstretched.
Yeah.
Like it's so witchy and I love it because it's just nothing but red and then her eyes are fucking huge and she's
Yeah.
like so still and so like it's like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like if a Glass Menagerie was a horror film, it would be Carrie.
Yeah. She does look like Killer Robot almost,
Yeah.
just like she's scanning and processing the scene.
Yeah.
She's just taking everything in at her own pace.
Yeah. And so this pandemonium all around her. So the stillness of her is like fucking iconic. I also love like as soon as it cuts to split screen, it's red and blue. Everything has become saturated in red and blue. And it's very much the normals of society are blue and Carrie is red. And sort of this like takeover of red over blue.
Mm-hmm.
The color work is amazing. And also to contrast what we had just seen during the sort of like delightful, you know, Tommy and Carrie spinning and spinning and spinning. It's very like multicolored, you know, so, you know, like, oh, so Technicolor Dreamcoat. Then this like harsh blue red split. It's so good. Like I think I told you before, like this is one of those movies that just because of the, you know, from like that tracking shot onward, the end of this movie is so tightly choreographed and shot. I gotta watch it again. I have to watch it again and again because I know I'm on this roller coaster ride, but it's like coming off a roller coaster and be like, you want to get right back in line.
Yeah.
And sit in the front row.
Yeah. She gets out of the building. She's walking down the street and Billy is riding around in his muscle car with Chris next to him and he sees Carrie and he's like, floors it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to run this crazy lady down.
Yeah.
She's like, no, you won't. Uses her mind to flip his car and it blow up.
Yep. Unsafe at any speeds, Jeffrey.
That's right. That man, those 1970s and 80s cars, they will blow up if you blow on them wrong.
Yep. Yep. But it's also this like, I love the way it's lifted straight out of Psycho, the sort of reek.
Yeah.
And it like, you know, it zooms in on her eyes. No, but Carrie White has zero fucks to give.
No. She goes home. House is a fucking mess, but there's candles everywhere.
There's so many. Listen, I love this. There's like candles on every surface on her bed.
Yeah.
On every surface where there can be candles, which again, it's like, Carrie, I know you've been through a lot tonight, but there's danger here. Yes. Like this is highly obsessive behavior. If you're lighting this many candles in your house, obsession.
Yeah. Carrie takes a bath. I mean, she needs some lava to get that fake blood
I
off
know,
of her.
right?
She's
Yeah, you need
scrubbing,
that
and that
orange.
red is
You
not
need that
going anywhere.
orange scrub stuff.
Yeah. And
Oh
her
my God.
mom
This
shows up.
thing. Well,
She's
this
like,
whole thing
oh,
where she's like, when Carrie comes up the stairs and there's like a dress mannequin that we had seen her make her dress with. And then like next to it, there's the mother in her like half in shadow, like looking like a dress mannequin, unmoving. Carrie doesn't see her. It's one of those things where it's like, it's such a jump scare that's not a jump scare.
yeah.
You know, it actually reminds me of when we watched Let the Right One In for Patreon. And remember when the nurse comes outside and she's looking around for the vampire girl and she's like, oh, I don't see anything, and goes back in. And then if from a dark corner you see movement,
Yes.
it's that kind of thing of like, Mrs. White is there the whole time, but it's not a jump scare. It's a jump scare when you, the viewer, notice she's been here the whole time.
Yeah.
Fucking terrifying and brilliant.
So, she is looking to her mom for comfort. She says, it was bad, Mom. They laughed at me.
Yeah.
Hold me. And Mom
Yeah.
doesn't hold her. She gets down on her knees.
Yeah.
And says, regarding your dad, I should have killed myself when he put it in me. We're like, oh, well, okay. You talk about your problem. I'll tell you about problem later.
You know what?
You talk about this now.
Yeah, let's bring up some shit that happened 16 years ago as opposed to dealing what I've just been through. It's also this very, again, back to this idea of like, this is like a fucked up Tennessee Williams play, specifically Glass Menagerie, and that she's like, I tasted the whiskey on his breath and I liked it. And again, it goes back to this thing, the Stephen King idea of, using religion to be like, no, something as enjoyable as sex can be inverted with self-loathing.
Yeah. Yeah, because the story was that dad was drunk.
Yeah.
Probably all the time, but he came home and
they had slept in the same bed. They were, they were doing their missionary work or whatever they were doing, and they were very good until one night
he got drunk, basically raped her. She was like, you know what? Honestly, it was horrible, but I liked the taste of the whiskey. I liked the feeling, and and it is essentially telling Carrie, one, this is how you were conceived, and two, I wished it had never happened.
Yeah.
And then she says, let's pray for the last time, and then draws Carrie down to her so that she can pick up her 10-inch chef's knife and drive it right into Carrie's lower back.
Yep. Carrie falls down the stairs.
And
Mom, oh my gosh. This shot of Piper Laurie in the white nightgown, when she does the cross, like makes the sign of the cross with the knife.
Brilliant.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Iconic horror movie villain here.
Yeah. And she's coming for Carrie with this knife. Carrie lying on the kitchen floor, and Carrie uses all of her TK powers, telekinetic powers, to launch the 15 knives that they own into her mother.
The potato peeler.
Yes,
the cheese grater. Anything and everything. Chopped. On this episode of Chopped. But again, but Margaret White gets like crucified and then impaled, like that sort of Saint Sebastian image. And she has, and what's crazy is so it's like watching this with my boyfriend. He had to like get up and go and like put something away, and the sounds that Piper Laurie is making sound orgasmic.
Yes.
Not painful.
Yes.
Like true Skinamax orgasm sounds.
Yeah.
And he was like, my boyfriend's like, what is, and he's seen this movie, but he's like, man, that doesn't sound like she's really enjoying the fuck out of it, which is the sort of Christian martyr expectation of like, the pain, it brings you closer to Jesus. Therefore pain is good.
Well, and Christ is your eternal spouse,
Yeah.
basically. I'm married to Jesus is a thing that gets said.
Yeah.
And it's is the way in which you this is the way you romantically connect to your eternal partner, I suppose.
Yeah.
And the house starts to collapse now.
Yeah.
Starts to fall apart, starts to get sucked in on itself. It starts to catch fire.
Yep.
Carrie carries her mom into
Mhm.
the punishment closet.
Yep.
And we see one more shot of the Saint Sebastian figure slash Jesus Christ slash maybe Weird Al Yankovic figure on the wall as the whole house just collapses into rubble and bursts into flames.
Yeah.
Epilogue, Cecil.
Uh-huh.
It's not
I
a good
love this
horror movie until you have this.
because it's like what you've just witnessed is so insane. Like
Mhm.
it's, I mean, clearly something that probably couldn't happen in real life, but it's this idea of like, how do you begin to pick up the pieces? And again, going back to the school shooter narrative of like cutting back to the survivors.
Mhm.
How do you try to make sense of something as devastating as this? As a community, as a family, as an individual.
Like almost every senior at the high school is dead.
Yeah. Except for like 5.
Yeah.
Sue being one of them.
Sue being one of them. And she is, Sue is in bed. Mom is taking care of her. Mom is like answering the phone, being like, "Oh, thank God, it's just some friend of hers calling." She's like, "Thank God you're not the press."
Who's played by her actual mother, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh, fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's telling her friend, Sue's young enough. She'll forget all about it in time. I'm like, whoa,
You think?
all
Because
right,
in mom's, well, it again goes to this dissonance of like, what mom, we know what happened, but what the parents are probably told is there was an electrical fire, many people died, it's very tragic. Like they don't understand what actually happened in that room.
yeah,
And again, it goes back to this thing of, when, here in America, where you have this whole thing of like hearing about school shooters and, the misunderstanding of people not there trying to like pave it over with thoughts and prayers, pave it over with, well, what if we just built panic rooms inside classroom? What if we give teachers guns? Like these completely what seem like very illogical responses
yeah,
from people who have not experienced this level of trauma, trying to like ham-handedly just be like, oh, I don't know, she'll be fine. Just, I don't know, we'll just give
yeah,
her some hot cocoa
yeah,
and send her thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure she'll grow out of it. I don't know. I just kept thinking about that school shooter narrative a lot,
yeah,
and the way people post school shooter are like, their brains can't seem to handle such traumatic things on such a large scale, and therefore they deny, they push it away,
yeah. There's also I thought about that too, and the other thing I thought about that this line of "she'll forget about it in time" really stood out to me from Miss Snell, because the thing I layer a lot on a lot of these horror movies, but this one really drives it home, is the two-dimensional nature of good parents,
Yeah.
right? Like people that feel like, did I just have like what balloons go up on my
Yes.
Zoom screen?
Balloons literally. What did you do, Jeffrey?
I don't know what I just
What is
did.
happening?
I don't know.
Are you a ghost? Are you Pennywise the clown?
It was so weird.
Do
I
it
don't know
again.
how
Just move. Just do this. Just do this.
did it was it rewarding me for making a good film point?
Maybe. I don't
The
know.
Zoom is
What
like,
is happening? I don't know
amen.
if we're keeping this in the podcast, but weird shit is going on right now, you guys.
Oh, that was freaky. No, it's the two-dimensional nature of like parents who consider themselves to be good parents. It's that like my child is healthy, she doesn't want for food, she gets to go to school, she gets all of the things she could ever need, and that is enough to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it there's no like third or fourth dimension to taking care of another person.
Yeah.
And I and it's funny because a lot of people think you're really helping people by like, if you hold the door, if you donate to charity, if you say good
Sure.
morning, if you keep it cute all the time,
Yeah.
you're like, but are you really helping people? Like, how do you know when somebody is in trouble, et cetera, et cetera, et
Is
cetera.
being nice being good?
Yeah. And Stephen Sondheim has clearly told us they are different. So we now see Sue walking toward Carrie's grave. And you sort of know it's a dream sequence because like Carrie's grave is across the street from her house in like
Yeah.
a dark black gravel pit.
Yeah, like the house has turned into coal.
Yes.
One, Sue is barefoot in
Uh,
like a nightgown in the middle of the day.
the headstone is a cross made from a for sale sign.
Yeah.
And
Again, back to that for sale sign
somebody has scrawled Carrie White burns in hell on the sign
and an arrow
and
pointing
an arrow.
straight down.
And Sue leans over to set flowers on Carrie's grave. And what happens, Cecil?
And a bloody hand comes up from the rubble and grabs Sue's arm. Cut to Mom's hand in the same place, and Sue is like literally having a fugue state, traumatic split
Yeah,
of like PTSD.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's this overhead shot of the bedroom too, of like the corner overhead shot of Mom trying to console this girl who is just screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. The end.
Happily ever after.
That's right. She'll be fine.
She'll be fine. She'll forget about it in time.
Yep.
Shall we rate this film?
Yes, let's.
How approachable is this movie if you are horror film averse? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, do not go near this movie. If you're horror film averse, 10 being, you'll be fine. I would give Carrie a 4 out of 10, 3, 4, 4. Let's go with 4. 4 out of 10, 4 out of 10 for sale signs. It's bloody more than gory. It just uses blood. It really doesn't have jump scares or like slashery gore, but it's tense, man, and it's mean.
Yeah.
It's when I love that description of horror films being mean, and this is a mean movie.
Yeah.
It's
And
fun.
it's like the nicer the character, the meaner the movie is to it.
Yeah. It's a very mean film, and it's relentless. People are bad. Like this might be one of the meanest high school movies I've ever seen. We've seen a lot of mean high school kids. So that's really where I would, lean towards what makes this movie less approachable. But if you're like, listen, the only thing that bothers me is jump scares, you'll be fine. There's no really jump scares in this movie. So content warnings: extreme bullying, child abuse,
Yeah.
Animal death, description of rape, that sort of thing. So just know that going into it. Cecil, what about you as a horror film? How do you rate this?
I mean, this is pretty iconic.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is I'm not gonna say 10 out of 10, but I'd say 9 out of 10 dirty pillows. Just because it is very male gaze, horny. It has a lot of stuff that Brian De Palma does that is few 40 plus years later, we go, that's a little awkward. However, even though it is super horny over these high school girls, man, it's a fucking ride.
Yeah.
It's a fucking ride.
It's a brilliantly put together film. It's perfectly acted. It's I don't know. It's there's a lot to learn from this movie, and it's good, man. It holds your attention constantly.
Yeah. It's also one that, like, I've seen this movie upwards of like 10 times, and I keep seeing small things, or I'm entranced by the things I've already seen or forgotten about every single time.
Yeah. Well, let's figure out what movie we will watch next. You have a scare die. I have a style die. We'll roll those up, see what movie matches those two things. So on your scare die, Cecil, if you roll a 1, our scare is contagious. 2, a monster. 3, dolls and or clowns. 4, a sadist. If you roll a 5, animal. 6, Institution. What you got?
That's a 1.
Contagious. Okay. So we'll match your contagious scare with my style, which is if I roll a 1, our next movie has to be Latin American. 2, something from before 1950. 3, a period piece. 4, something LGBTQ plus. 5, psychological horror, something relatively bloodless. And 6, just what the fuck? What the fuck did I just watch? Something really WTF. So what do we got? I got a 3, a period piece.
Oh, okay.
And contagious.
This should be a challenge, but not impossible.
Not impossible. We don't have a ton of movies on our list here, but the ones we have, I think, are pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I put on Mask of the Red Death.
Classic.
Vincent Price.
Yeah.
It's about plague.
Yeah. Or is it?
Or is it even? Yeah, I don't know if I mean, I've never seen this movie.
I think I think I have seen this movie. It's a Vincent Price joint, so it's going to have a little bit of campiness to it.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's a solid contender.
Yes. You put Black Death on here, which also came up from our user Martin on Letterboxd. Tell me about Black Death.
Black Death, I think I've seen this one, and if I remember right, it's Sean Bean of Lord of the Rings, and essentially he's like a sort of plague finder, witch finder kind of thing, and it's one of those movies where it's like, is it of the plague or is it a witch? So does it fit into play Contagious? Sure, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay,
but
great.
This is, very much Europe during the Black Plague kind of narrative. Okay. But I think there's some witchiness going down here.
Yeah, that came from Martin as well. And then Katie on our Letterboxd page says Isle of the Dead, 1945.
Oh, I don't know this one.
On a Greek island during the 1912 war, several people are trapped by quarantine for the plague. If that isn't enough worry, one of the people, a superstitious old peasant, suspects a young woman of being a vampiric demon.
Ooh, and this is it's got Boris Karloff in it, so this is very like 1940s.
Yeah, 1945.
But that's kind of interesting because we think of like anything in black and white, we're just like, oh, it's just all old. But this is the 1940s looking back at the 1912.
Yeah.
Like mid-war, between the wars, I guess. So that's, I don't know, maybe an interesting take that, 100 plus years later, where like maybe some of those subtle nuances would be lost on us or find interesting to us.
Yeah. That's a really good movie. Weaponized Toaster seconds Mask of Red Death, wanting more Vincent Price. Ganymede's Cup gives us Gwen from 2018. British folk horror set in the past in rural North Wales. Cholera isn't the only plague here.
Uh-oh.
Okay. And Brave Crab gives us Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies as well.
Oh, sure. I remember those books and movies. They're very silly, but if you're in the mood for silly, a good time.
Yeah. So we got some good ones here. I'm most intrigued with Mask of the Red Death, and Isle of the Dead sounds strangely interesting too.
Isle of the Dead does sound really interesting. I don't know. I think we should go with the Vincent Price. This is, it's a period piece. It's definitely about contagion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Mask of the Red Death is the way to go. 1964 film. It is available to rent online, so let's do that. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cecil, for talking with me. And if you have thoughts on Carrie or ideas for other movies that would be good, Contagion meets period piece, let us know on Instagram at randomhorror9. Or over on our Patreon, where we have public discussion threads for each episode, and you don't have to be a paying member to participate in those. So watch The Mask of the Red Death from 1964 this week, and come on back next Tuesday for a new episode. Have a restful night with no weird-looking Jesus candles in your punishment closet or nothing. Boo.
Boo.